everyone. Today we are going to be doing a gentle flow practice followed by some restorative yoga. So restorative yoga just means that the props are going to do the yoga for you. I highly recommend getting a few pillows and maybe a blanket or a towel. I grabbed a few throw pillows, but you can also use bedroom pillows. You can use even small couch cushions if that feels better. And as always, if we do not want to do the restorative yoga portion, we can do these poses without the props and just treat it more like a yin pose instead. So when we're ready, we're going to find any easy seat we need, and again, just give yourself that extra time to settle in. Sometimes it's nice to even just notice how it feels, and if we could be even 5% more comfortable, give ourselves that permission to just readjust, however we need to readjust. And then once we are ready, we'll just settle into whatever it is we need to settle into, which might take the form of just taking a deep breath in and out. Maybe that's all we need right now. It's just a full inhale and exhale. This might be a good time to notice how the body is feeling today. How does the body feel? Are there any spots that are kind of calling out to us today? Any sore muscles, any achy joints? We might even give ourselves a moment to give ourselves permission to honor those spots. Make sure to adjust our practice accordingly. Always mindful that while we can work and breathe through discomfort, we are not here to ignore pain. Honoring the body means challenging from a constructive place. Pain is a warning signal that we have gone past that constructive place. Now, mindful that this is our time. We can do whatever we need. And if we would like, today might be a day that we go down a hot route or a cooling route for our breath, if we want to. So today might be a day that we want to do our victorious breath, our Ujjayi breath, when we slightly constrict the back of our throat the same way we do when we're fogging up a window or whispering. This is also known as the Darth Vader breath or the ocean breath, where we just make that sound as we inhale through the nose and out through the nose. Now this might be what we need, that victorious breath as we breathe in, and a victorious breath as we breathe out. So notice if that's what we need today. Ujjayi breath is also known as a heating type of breath, but that might not be what we need today. If we'd like, we might do what's known as candlestick breath, where we take a deep breath in through the nose, but then we'll curl our tongue as if we're turning our tongue into a straw, and we breathe out through that straw. So we'll breathe in, we'll curl our tongue and breathe out. So we might do that again with that deep breath in, and we curl our tongue to breathe out. So again, we can notice what works for us today. As we settle into it, mindful it's okay if one or the other breath feels a little silly, it feels a little out of place for us, that's okay. I always see silliness in the same category as that discomfort. This is something we can be present with and notice. What is my body's reaction to something that is silly? That's something that I wouldn't do in my public day-to-day life. How does that feel? And if it's constructive for me, can I continue to do it? So again, whether it's Ujjayi breath, that or candlestick breath, that it's up to us. Whatever we need, we're going to give ourselves just another few seconds with that breath. Now, when we are ready, we'll bring our hands together at the heart, and we'll pause for a moment to set that positive intention. Now, we can remind ourselves that our intention is anything we need it to be. We might even let the mind go blank for a moment and notice what word it naturally gravitated towards. And perhaps we can hold that word as our intention for today's practice. Even if it's from a place of curiosity. Why did my mind pick that particular word? Now, if we'd like, we'll keep our hands together. We're just going to play with a little rubbing of our palms back and forth. So just a little up and down motion. And we're probably making a little bit of heat on the palms, a little bit of friction, just noticing how that feels. When we are ready, we're going to remove our hands about 1 centimeter away from each other. Just take a moment with that. And notice how that feels. Notice that natural vibration that we're feeling in our hands, that little tingling sensation. We might even like to lightly press our palms together. We might notice that there's a little resistance, as if it is two north ends of a magnet getting closer to each other. Again, just noticing how that feels, that like natural resistance. Whether we believe this is energy between our palms or simply a neurological reaction, doesn't matter. Just notice how that feels. Now, if we can we still imagine this particular resistance as we do a few Qigong movements while we're seated? So again, Qigong is a lot like yoga. It's breath with movement. If we want, we can imagine we're moving energy with our hands, but we don't have to. So when we are ready, we're going to scoop our arms up to the sky, maybe a deep breath in. Now, when we're ready on our exhale, we'll lightly press those palms down as if we're just lightly tamping something down. And then we'll scoop. We might even imagine like we're scooping our hands through water as we come up. And then lightly press those palms down. Maybe still thinking about that tingling sensation in the palms. Maybe not. We'll inhale as those arms come up. We'll exhale as those palms start to press down. We're going to do this one more time in full as we inhale up. Now we'll press the palms down. We'll pause here. Now if we can, we'll flip our palms like we're scooping something. We'll lift our palms to about collarbone height, about heart height. We'll flip the palms again as if we were flipping a pancake, and then we'll just push them back down. So again, we're going to flip as if we're scooping and come up, and flip like a pancake and come down. So we can just think like we're lifting something up with our hands, and then we're lightly pressing it down. And again, we can use our breath here. That inhale brings up the arms. That exhale lightly brings it down. Just 3 more like this. Now when we're ready, we'll let just those palms come all the way down, maybe to the ground, maybe to our legs. Just pause here for a moment, notice what that feels like. And we'll take our deep breath in, and that deep breath out. Now when we're ready, we'll find our way into a tabletop position. Get there however you'd like to get there, swinging the legs around, rolling the shins. It's really up to us. Now when we're ready, we'll just do a few of our hip circles. We can let our hips shift to one side. We'll circle down and around and towards the other side. Now again, we can make this movement anything we need it to be. I personally prefer that figure 8 movement, that little diagonal line in between. Some might even prefer a figure 8 that's a little more horizontal or sideways. So you're more swaying side to side. Really just make this time your own. We're just waking up the hips a little bit, getting a little creative movement going on. And again, we might even tap into that silliness. Maybe it feels good to play with rounding the spine or bending the elbows, just making any type of shapes we'd like. And again, this is really helpful for us. This can help get us out of whatever stuck patterns we might be in. Again, the body and the mind are so interconnected that it's really impossible to truly disconnect the two. So sometimes if we find our mind is stuck in the same patterns, the same thinking patterns over and over again, we might help out by getting our body out of the patterns that it's used to, just making it move in ways that maybe we typically don't do, even if it feels silly. We might try to reverse that. And again, if we're just going freestyle, can we imagine what our freestyle feels like in reverse? As if somebody just hit rewind on us. Again, whatever we need here, we're just kind of moving around a little bit. Now when we're ready, we'll come back towards center and maybe just a few of our cat-cow movements. If we're ready, we might inhale and drop the belly down. And exhale and round the back up, and we might repeat this. We could drop our belly and we can round the spine. Again, make that time your own. I personally like to keep a softness in my elbows. I tend to have a overextension in my elbows. They tend to lock out and overextend, so I like to keep them nice and soft, but mindful we don't have to have a bend in the elbows, especially if we find that when we drop the belly down, we're kind of doing a little bit of a push-up. That's usually our body trying to avoid moving through the back by instead moving through the entire torso. So again, just notice, and nothing's wrong with doing a little push-up if we want to do a push-up from table. It's just a matter of what we want to focus on, what movement is beneficial to us right now. We're going to wind down from this nice and slow. And we'll end on whatever it is we want to end on here. Come back to center. Now we might shake out the wrists, we might roll them out, we might do a little wrist stretching, really whatever we need. We'll find our way into our first child's pose. So again, any version of child's pose that works for us today might be a day that we want our hands by our feet, or the hands behind the head, or even the hands, the palms clasped together and over the head, our praying child. This is our time, it's really what we need it to be. Again, allow your body to express itself in the way it feels natural. I know that might sound a little hokey for some people, but this is really what the heart of yoga is about. We're being authentic with the body and with the breath, and hopefully the mind can follow suit. Now we're just going to try our best to breathe in. And we're going to try our best to breathe out. Maybe one more full breath, whatever version we found. And when we're ready, we'll find our way into our first down dog. So we can always come back up, readjusting the hands and the feet. We'll curl those toes as they come back and up. And again, whatever we need here. And it might just feel good to really pedal out the heels. Same deal. Does it feel good to lift up a leg and then bring it down? Do we like that leg to kick back? Do we like more of a semicircle lifting with a straight leg? The only rule here is that if our body is starting to show the warning signs of pain, we come out. We might also notice if our hands tend to pool around the pinky area. We're going to do our best to spread those fingers wide, really thinking about the base of that index finger anchoring down, maybe a little grip of all 5 fingers. That might be hard on our forearms, but it is better for our joints. So whatever we need, we'll do our best to breathe in and do our best to breathe out. Now when we are ready, now we can start to walk our feet towards the hands or hands towards the feet, whatever we want to do. And it's our first forward fold. So it's whatever we need here. It might just feel good to sway. It might feel good to hold on to the elbows and move a little bit. Again, whatever we personally need here, it's up to us. We're going to try our best to breathe in. We're going to try our best to breathe out. Might feel good to shake out the head. We can always remind ourselves that our body does keep the score. So when we're feeling a little stressed, a little anxious, we're more likely to hold our head up, maybe so we can be more aware of our surroundings. And if that's the case, no shame, no judgment. Again, our body is just doing what it can to help us out. We might just shake out the head then. Maybe a little head nod. We might even do that periodically every time we're in a forward fold, just our reminder to fully let go. Just one moment of surrender, even if it is literally one moment long. Now we'll try our best to breathe in. We'll try our best to breathe out. Now when we're ready, we'll come up to stand. We could press through our feet. We can let our arms reach up and overhead. And eventually we'll let our hands find their way to the heart. We'll pause here if that's possible. Noticing that heartbeat if we can. Noticing how it feels to breathe in. Noticing how it feels to breathe out. Now, if we would like, we'll find our way into our half sun salutations. So when we are ready, we'll inhale our arms up and overhead. On our exhale, we'll dive down. Maybe we're still thinking about those hands moving through water or energy if we would like. We could inhale that halfway lift. We'll exhale to lower down. We'll inhale all the way up. Again, maybe those hands are moving through something. We feel a little resistance, and eventually palms can find the heart. In a lot of ways, this is kind of like a qigong move in and of itself. We're going to inhale those arms up and overhead. On the exhale, we'll slowly come down. We'll inhale our halfway lift. We'll exhale and lower back down. And on our inhale, we're coming right back up, letting those arms reach, and eventually hands can find the heart. And one last time, we'll inhale up. We'll exhale as we lower. We'll inhale, halfway lift. We'll exhale and lower again. We'll inhale all the way up when we are ready. And we'll exhale those hands to our heart. And we'll pause. And we'll breathe. We'll notice how it feels to breathe in. We'll notice how it feels to breathe out. Now, if we would like, we'll find our standing crescent moons. Now we can have our feet together, hips width, more than hips width, it's up to us. On our inhale, we'll let our arms reach up and overhead. Now we can choose, do we want palms together, hooked thumbs, clasping palms with the pointers up. Maybe we'd like that right hand behind the left. It's up to us, whichever one we want to do. We'll go up and eventually up and overhead. And we'll just take a few moments with this. Now again, with these side bends, we really want to think lengthening out through the spine. Can we think about not just lengthening on our left side, but we can lengthen out on the right as well. Notice if we're kind of crunching up here. Can we create space? Can we create length? I know for a lot of us, this is as much an oblique exercise as it is a stretch in the back. It's okay if it's a challenge. Deep breath in, deep breath out. Now we'll come back up, and we'll come up and over in the opposite direction. Again, just getting a little stretch in the back. Oh, noticing how that feels. We're gonna find length through that back, not only on the right side, but on the left side as well. Just taking a moment with that. Deep breath in and deep breath out. Full inhale if we can. Full exhale. One more breath. Now when we're ready, we'll come back up. We'll let our arms relax down. We might shrug those shoulders out. Now, if it feels good, we're gonna play with our empty coat sleeves. So again, it's okay if we're feeling silly right now. That's kind of one of the things we can explore with yoga. With empty coat sleeves, we wanna think like we're wearing a coat, but we didn't put our arms through the sleeves. And our hands and arms are those empty coat sleeves. Now we might have a nice wide stance, and doing our best to think relaxed arms, and we're gonna get ready to pivot onto the balls of our feet. Whatever side we're gonna twist towards, it's usually recommended to twist the opposite foot. So again, make sure this is your own, and if at any point you get a tweaking sensation in your knees, ease back. That means we're making our knees twist, and our knees don't wanna twist. So again, nice relaxed arms, and we're just gonna start to twist, pivoting that opposite foot as we just twist side to side. So we might find that our hands are lightly hitting against our back. Maybe they're hitting to where roughly the kidneys are. So this practice is playing around with a hybrid of yoga and qigong. This is a qigong exercise as well, called knocking on the doors of life. And they believe that more or less that those doors of life, that energy center, was located more or less where the kidneys are. So again, it's just a nice reminder that all these different cultures came up with these systems to help us out by working the body. So again, if that is one takeaway we can get from all these ancient practices, is that They learned a long time ago that in order to help us out mentally and emotionally, we gotta help out the body too. We gotta help out the breath. So we're just gonna slowly start to wind this down. Again, nothing crazy. We don't want to be violent with those arms. They're just empty coat sleeves going side to side. We're just going to wind it down slowly, just letting ourselves sway. Maybe it feels good to close the eyes and take a moment. Maybe we're noticing that same tingling sensation on our palms, but maybe this time it's on the arms or even across the entire body. Again, we don't want to go searching for an experience. We just want to observe if it's happening. That experience, that practice is no less valid if we are not getting a tingle sensation on the skin. We just want to notice. Now, if we would like, we're going to find our way back into our downward facing dog, and we might do that flow to get back to down dog. Now when we're ready, we'll inhale our arms up and overhead, and we'll exhale into our forward fold. We'll inhale, halfway lift. We'll exhale to plant our hands. We'll step back, and we'll give ourselves a couple of moments here. Now it might just feel good to really stretch out through the legs. We might really love to press through the heels. Maybe we're all about core engagement, pressing that belly to the spine. Maybe even thinking about our ribs knitting a little closer to center. Whatever we need here, we're going to try our best to breathe in and try our best to breathe out. One more full breath. Now when we're ready, we'll find our way into our child's pose. So this is where we're going to start to segue. We're going to first do our child's pose like we would in any hatha or vinyasa practice. We might be someone who uses props anyways, and again, that doesn't make our practice any less valid, but making the child's pose of our choosing and giving ourselves a moment with it. We can always let it be passive, and there's nothing negative about that term, especially in yoga. If we like it to be active, we might have our arms stretched out in front of us and lightly press our hands forward as if they're trying to slide to the front of the mat as the hips get heavier against the knee, the heels. That might be something that feels good, maybe through the back. But again, active does not mean anything negative here. It just means the opposite of, passive does not mean anything negative here. It just means the opposite of active. Whatever we need. Because pretty soon we are transitioning into a practice that is almost entirely passive. And in fact, we are going to start that with a restorative child's pose. Now what we might do is we might take our our pillows. Now we are welcome to do pillows with blocks underneath it. If we have yoga bolsters, we're welcome to use yoga bolsters. Again, we're really just using whatever we have around the house. We want to be innovative. We want to be the MacGyvers of the yoga world. Now if we can, we might prefer to have our knees about the distance of that pillow or bolster. This can be done if we prefer the knees more in front. Again, make this time your own, or behind, I should say, the yoga or the pillow. Now when we are ready, we might arrange those pillows essentially where the torso would be. Some people like to arrange those pillows and then place their towel or blanket on top of it. Make this time your own. When we're ready, we're just going to start to walk out and see if we can lay down on that. Now some people might prefer to scooch a little forward, so now that their knees are on opposite sides of the pillow and not just pillow width distance. But again, just notice what works for us here. Now we might have one side of our head against our pillow. It's a little tough to have our head facing down, and for a lot of us it hurts the neck to try to put the chin down. So if we're doing that, we'll just place one side of the head down, and in a little bit we'll switch sides. So as we're settling into this, mindful that it's okay if restorative yoga creates a charge within us. Restorative yoga is very still. A truly traditional restorative yoga practice might be an hour to an hour and a half long and only have maybe 4 or 5 poses total. Sometimes you could be holding a pose for as long as 10 or 15 minutes. In today's practice, we're just going to hold it for a few. But even in a few minutes, it's okay if the mind reacts to that.
So if that's happening, just notice. And we can ask ourselves, is this something constructive that I can explore and breathe through? Or do I need to take a break because I'm going into the warning signals of pain? Again, just notice where we are at. And notice if you can breathe in. And breathe out. Now we'll just give this 5 more deep breaths with our head turned to one side. Now if we can, we'll just change. Now our opposite side of our head is resting on that opposite side. Again, just make that time your own, settling in as we need to. Now the idea here is that the body is taking these shapes of these yoga poses, but the body itself is doing little to no work to be in those poses. And the idea here is that we're making these shapes, but everything is relaxed, which they believe has a very beneficial effect for our nervous system. But again, just because it has a beneficial effect for the nervous system doesn't mean it's not going to be difficult, or there might be not be any challenge. Again, just notice where we are with that. Now, if we can, we'll give this 5 more deep breaths. Now when we are ready, we'll slowly come out. We might slide our hands back, we might come up. Now we might lift up to more of a table position and walk ourselves back. We'll move our props out of the way. We'll come into more of a seated position if that feels good. Now we might straighten out our legs for a moment and we might shake them out a little bit. We might move the feet a little bit. We're just going to give ourselves a moment with this. Now before we come into some more restorative poses, we're just going to do some gentle twists while we are seated. So if we would like, we might take in our left knee, we might cross it over the right. We're going to think length through the body, nice and tall. And then on our exhale, we'll twist over towards that left side. Now, we might hold the knee, we might hug it, maybe the elbow's on the outside. Always remember that this is not about how much we can twist and crank ourselves into the twist, but finding that mild stretch, something we can breathe into. So that first little bit of resistance, that's where we stay. We don't stop when we hear we don't keep going until we hear the back pop or we feel like we're in the shape we want to be in. We stop at that first moment of resistance, that little tension in the muscles that we want to pay attention to, and breathe. So we're going to give that a full breath in, full breath out. So our deep inhale, our deep exhale. One more full breath. Now when we're ready, we'll unwind and we'll twist to the other side. Now we are welcome to stay upright for this particular pose. We're welcome to stay lower one hand or 2 hands down. We might walk the hands out or reach. Now we might try to keep both of our hips anchored against the ground. There's nothing inherently wrong with letting that hip lift up as well. It just means we're not going to focus as much on the back anymore. So once that hip comes along for the ride, the back doesn't need to bend as much. So we're just going to try our best to breathe in and our best to breathe out. Full inhale. Full exhale. One more full breath. Now if we're
to center, but we'll pause with where our legs are at. We'll take that left hand down to the ground, we'll let our right arm reach up and overhead. And just like before, can we think lifting through the spine? We're not just long on that right side of the body, we're long on the left side as well. Deep breath in, deep breath out. 2 more breaths. Now when we're ready, we'll come up, we'll let the arms relax down, we'll undo the legs, we might shake them out, we might move our feet. We're gonna try it on the opposite side. We can bring in the opposite knee. So if we started on left, now we've got the right, we'll cross it over that straight leg. We'll get tall through the body, and keeping that length, we'll twist. And now again, we're gonna try our best to find that first bit of resistance in the back, and then we breathe. Now this is also a place where we can do Ujjayi breath or candlestick breath. And we can even explore and experiment and see which one works for us. So is it that Ujjayi, that constriction in the back of the throat? Is it candlestick breath, that curling of the tongue, so that deep breath in? Just 2 more breaths here. Now when we're ready, we'll unwind and we'll go in the opposite direction. So we are welcome to be upright, we're welcome to come down, we're welcome to walk the hands out. Again, we can have both hips anchored on the ground, that means we're focusing more on the back. But if it feels better to let that hip come up, maybe that's the position we need, that is okay. It just means we're doing something a little different. So whatever we need here, we're just trying our best to breathe in. Trying our best to breathe out. Full inhale if possible. And full exhale. One more breath. Now when we're ready, we'll come up. We'll come back to center. We'll take our right hand to the ground. Left arm can lift up, maybe up and overhead. Again, just giving ourselves a little bit of time here to stretch out the back. And we might really think about that left side of the back elongating and finding that stretch. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. Maybe one more breath. Now when we're ready, we'll come back up. We'll let our arms come down. We'll uncross the legs. We might move a little bit. And we're going to come into a restorative forward fold. Now that looks different on everybody. We can use as many or as few props as we would like, and we can mix and match. And I'll show a few of those options. Now what we might do first is put something underneath the knees. We might take our towel or our blanket. Maybe we have it folded as if it is a towel that's about to hang in the bathroom. And we just start to roll it up. So we've got this lovely blanket burrito. We'll place it underneath our knees and let it settle in. We might need to readjust the hips. Now if we can, we might take one of those pillows and place it in front of us. Now we might take that second pillow and place it next to the first one. We can also place it on top of the first one, or we can not use it at all. Whatever forward fold works for us, we might start to shift forward. Now we're welcome to keep the hands on the pillows, especially if we have them stacked, or hands on the pillows as one is beside the other. Hands could be on the floor. Now likewise, if we don't want this particular variation, we might take one of our pillows, place it underneath the knees. It might even be underneath the knees with the rolled up towel as well, maybe without. Take our pillow. If we want additional pillows, we might stack those and start to lean forward. So again, I want you to really figure out which version is going to work for you, because this one we're going to hold for an extra minute longer than we did child's pose. So this is a time where we check in. How's our low back doing? If the low back is telling us no, we might put extra items underneath our knees to bend them. We might put extra items underneath the torso, so we are reducing that forward folding. We might come out of the pose entirely and do something different. I want you to really make this time your own.
And again, whatever we need here, we're gonna settle into it. Now, if we can, we might put our chin on the pillow. If we're doing stacked pillows or just one, we can also do one side of the head. If we're doing that, I will cue when to turn your head. And then can we settle into it? So in our yoga practice is all about breathing into something that is new and different and challenging so we can grow. And sometimes that new and different and challenging is stillness. So for a lot of us, stillness is a rare commodity. Even if we're sitting at our desk, we are constantly doing things. We are answering emails, taking phone calls, working on projects. We're not still. What happens if we're in one spot? And this is just where we are. No muscles are engaging, nothing to do. Where does the mind go? We can remind ourselves that our mind is a processing machine. So if it's going to particular thoughts, it is just trying its best to process that thought. And we have two options. If it's constructive to let the mind bounce around a little bit, we might do so within safe parameters. If it's more constructive to bring ourselves back to the breath, we might come back to the breath. And again, really notice what you personally need. We're all going to need something different. We all need different responses to whatever is coming up in our minds. Likewise, our mind is coming up with different thoughts. Now, if we have our head turned to one side, I invite you to turn it in the opposite direction. And for this half, I will keep relatively quiet. And again, we can always compare and contrast. What does a pose feel like when someone is guiding us through it verbally every step of the way? And what is it like when it's quiet? Now maybe this can get 2 more breaths. Now if we're ready, we'll come up. Nice and slow. It's okay if there's a little hesitation to move. Now we'll take a little bit of time after such a pose to just move around a little bit. So maybe we're shaking out the legs, maybe we move a little bit. Now before we come onto our back, we'll just do a little bit more seated just to kind of help out that back. Now if we like, we can find our way into our bound angle pose with the knees bent and the soles of the feet meeting. We're just going to take a moment, get nice and tall. And on an exhale, we'll twist towards that right side. And we're just going to try our best to get nice and tall with that. We're going to give that a deep breath in. And a deep breath out. One more full breath. And then when we're ready, we'll come back to center. We'll twist in the opposite direction. So again, we can be nice and tall. We're going to try our best to breathe in. And breathe out. One more full breath. Now when we're ready, we'll come back to center. We'll find that twist in the opposite side again. Now we are welcome to stay here. If it feels good, we might take one hand and place it on either side of that leg, and we can walk out in whatever direction feels good. Same deal here. Can we keep that left hip anchoring down? There's nothing inherently wrong with letting the hip lift up. It just means we're focusing a little less on back movement when we do so. Now again, we can make this our own. Some might really like to make it as twisty as possible. Others will find it's a little more of a side bend, very little twist. I really want you to notice what you need. We all have different muscle memory where bodies are going through different things. That means certain angles of stretch are going to feel amazing for one person and not so great for somebody else. We'll try our best to breathe in. We'll try our best to breathe out. One more breath. Now when we're ready, we'll come back up, we'll come back to center, we'll just twist for a moment in the opposite direction. Now we can stay upright, we can plant the hands, we could walk out. Again, notice, do we like to keep the hip up? Do we prefer to keep the hip anchored down? Is my twisting side bend very twisty? Is it more side bend than it is twist? Again, there's no right or wrong answer here. I just want you to tap into what your body's telling you and respond accordingly. And just give that a full deep breath in and that full deep breath out. One more full breath here. Now when we're ready, we'll come back up, we'll come back to center, we'll let our legs come up, we'll let the legs straighten out, maybe a little shake out, maybe we're ready to move our feet side to side, and we'll come down onto our back. So again, we'll make sure our props are handy. If we have to come out of our pose for whatever reason, we allow ourselves to do that, whether it is to get props, to get extra props, whatever we need. As always, those are not disruptions of practice, they are part of the practice. Now what we might do first is we might hug the knees in and just rock a little side to side. Notice if the back is a little tender, maybe it feels good to roll out the knees in one direction and roll them out in the opposite direction. Now we might first do our more hatha-based twists, just a little something for our back. So we might twist in whatever direction feels good towards the right. And we'll just give this a couple of seconds here, that full breath in and that full breath out. Now when we're ready, we'll come back to center. We'll try it in the opposite direction. Again, whatever twist we need here, we're just doing a little something for the back before we come into the more restorative version of this twist. Again, we're not trying to chase anything here, just a little stretch, that first point of resistance. And then we'll come back. Now if it feels good, we might move around a little bit. And then we're going to come into the twist of our choosing. So what we might do for a restorative twist is we might first take a pillow and place it on that right side and just let our knees knock over. And we'll notice there's a little space between our knees. We might take that second pillow and place it underneath. Now we might even take our blanket or our towel, we might unroll it a little bit. Maybe we place it underneath our head. Again, just notice how that feels. How big that roll is up to us. We might come into it and find that, wow, that is tilting my head back in ways that don't feel good. Maybe we roll it out a little bit more and get less of a roll. We might not even do this entirely. Maybe it doesn't feel good. Now, as we're ready, we'll let our arms rest in the way we want them to rest. Some people even like to place blankets underneath the arms as well, or even on top of the blankets. If we have things like weighted bean bags or anything of that matter to place in the hands, some people like to do that. If we have an eye pillow, we might place an eye pillow over us. And we're going to give this a good 3 to 4 minutes. So this is where we start to dive into some truly classical restorative yoga. And if we need to readjust, that's okay. But the idea here is we are doing little to no engagement in the muscles. The props are doing all the work. So if we scan the body and we find, well, no, there is a place, maybe that means moving the pillow down or up, maybe it means changing the position of the towel. And we can get really creative with our yoga practice, with our restorative yoga practice. I always like to say that our restorative yoga practice is a practice where we are building pillow forts, but our fort, our temple, is the body. Riding that breath if we can. And whatever the mind is coming up with, notice if it's constructive to come back to the breath instead. Is it constructive to let the mind bounce around a little bit? If we're doing option number 2, notice if we can be the neutral observer. We can witness these thoughts, but we are not part of them. We are not engaging with them. We can think of them like a movie. Maybe this can get 3 more deep breaths. Now to come out, what we might do is we might take that right hand, remove one pillow, come up. And we might take that right hand, take the second pillow, bring it over to that left side. Again, if we have to come out of the pose entirely to do this, that's okay. And we might drop that left knee onto that pillow and adjust accordingly. If we're ready, we might take that second pillow, place it between the legs, find a good spot where the knee can rest against it and it doesn't feel like there's too much muscle engagement. If we're doing these poses and we get an aching sensation along the outside of our thigh, we might add on the padding in between our knees, maybe an additional pillow or some extra towels or blankets. Again, notice how the neck feels. We want to readjust what we're doing with the neck. We'll settle in however it is we would like to settle in. And we're going to give this about 3 to 4 minutes if we can. For this one, I'll stay relatively silent. And again, we can compare how it feels to have something guiding us through the pose versus silence. Maybe this can get 3 more deep breaths. Now when we're ready, we might take that left hand to help remove the pillow. We'll come up. Now, again, we could keep this towel behind our neck for the rest of practice. We can remove it. Our last pose is a bit of a choose your own adventure. Now we might do our supported pyramid legs / supported bridge pose, or we might do our legs up the wall. Now if we would like, we might take our pillows, and again, it's okay if we have to come out of the pose, and we might slide them underneath our knees. Now what we might do is we might take both of them and place them underneath the knees. We might even do both of them and roll up our towel. We might have one underneath each knee, and then we might bring ourselves back down. We might need to readjust accordingly. And we can decide, we might have our knees hips width distance. We're welcome to let our knees kind of knock into each other with the feet turned away a little bit. Now we're welcome to do this as a restorative bridge pose as well. If we have a block, we can always put the block underneath the tailbone area. If we don't, we might take our blanket or our pillows, maybe one, maybe more than one. We might start by essentially sitting on the pillows and then walking ourselves back nice and slow. And again, we might find we're not where we thought we'd be adjust. And we might stay here with the knees bent. We can also straighten out the legs. Sometimes that gives us a nice subtle hip flexor stretch, but for other people, it will give us too much hip flexor stretch. And again, the hip flexors are just those muscles right in front of the hips. Now we might do this pose. If we prefer, we could do legs up the wall, which we can do if we are near a wall, but also the edge of a bed, the end of, or the edge of a couch, something we can kind of swing our legs up on. We might take a pillow, we might take more than one. It's a little tricky stacking pillows, but you're welcome to try. We'll bring it to that wall or to the bed. Now we might sit on that pillow with our hip close to the wall. We'll start to lean forward. We'll take one leg, bring it up. Other leg comes up. We start to transfer onto our back. And just like before, we might find we need to readjust, a little inchworming to get closer to the wall or the bed or the couch. Now again, if we're at a bed or a couch and it's up knee height, we can always have our knees bent and draped over the top of our bed. If we prefer, we can even lay with our knees bent if we're by a wall. We can extend them out. And this one, we're going to do at least 2 minutes guided with the option of staying here for longer if we would like. So again, just 2 minutes here. If we have our legs up the wall and we find we're losing circulation in the legs, we might wiggle the toes, we might flex the feet and point them. We can also take breaks by bending the knees and bringing our feet back down. It's really whatever we need here. Things can be challenging, but we are learning to discern between challenge and pain. Far too often we confuse challenge with pain, and then we shy away from challenge. But we also tend to confuse pain with challenge, and we tend to lean into the pain, and that's when we get injured. So again, we're just noticing that difference. So we've got 1 more minute here if we want to do an additional minute. Now we are welcome to stay here. We've come to that last bit of our practice, which is that last minute or so before Shavasana. We might find that we want to stay in the pose that we're in. Again, a classical restorative yoga practice, you could be in these poses for as long as 10 to 15 minutes. In today's class, we were doing more 1 to 3 or 4 minutes. So we might even prefer to spend those 3 minutes or so of Shavasana in the restorative pose of our choosing. Now that might be the restorative pose that I last guided you into. It might be a repeat of one of the ones we did beforehand, even if it's child's pose or forward fold. We might prefer to do a completely different restorative pose that we just didn't do today. There are countless variations of these various poses. So it's whatever you personally need. As always, if we need a longer Shavasana than a couple of minutes, please hit pause. Please put a timer on your phone. As always, we want to make sure this practice is our own. That is the beauty of a home practice. It might be without the structure of a studio or our group.
but it is a chance to really customize the practice and customize it hopefully without any apologies. So again, whatever we need. If we are doing our Shavasana or our last restorative pose with me, I'm going to be playing the singing bowls for a little bit. Eventually I'll let them fade into silence and then I will guide us out. But as always, what we do between now and then is entirely within your power. We can start with our deep breath in. And that breath out. Now we can move in whatever way feels good for us today. Now we might all be in different poses. So really notice what is your authentic way of gently returning that movement. And if we find that temptation to speed up the process, if we find that temptation to hop out of our Shavasana, is it possible to slow that down or even delay the response for one breath? If we can delay the response for 2 breaths, wonderful, but even if it's just 1 breath, that's great. So whatever we're finding, we're going to build up that movement. Whatever we're finding will eventually build up enough movement that we have found our way to an easy seat. So again, no worries here, no rush. We're going to get there when we get there. When we're ready, we'll let our hands find their way back to the heart. We'll seal in our practice with that moment of gratitude. And today we might ask ourselves, if gratitude were something I could feel in the body, what would gratitude feel like in my body? And then whatever meaning of Namaste resonates, and perhaps today it is the strength within me recognizes and honors the strength within you. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your practice. Namaste.